friends. Welcome to a Miss Mindy Minute. This is a time where you as a student and I as a school counselor work on what can sometimes be the hardest things, heart things. During our time together, we will focus on ways that you can work to make your heart and your actions and your choices and your academics to mirror the heart of Jesus. Normally, were I to be there in your classroom, I would normally be able to pick up on your style preference. Even if you were in your school uniform, I'd be able to look at your shoes and tell if you were sporty, or your hair and tell if you were edgy. Your fashion style preference is when you naturally lean into one that often works hand in hand with how you identify yourself and your personality. So today, because I can't be there with you, I'd like you to help me out there in your classroom so that I can get a sense of your individual preferences. Not necessarily fashion style, but lifestyle. And to do that, I'd like to play a game we often play in my household called, and you know this game, Would You Rather? You know it, right? This is the game that gives you two choices and you indicate your preference, okay? So, ready? Here we go. Okay, style preference number 1. Raise your right hand if you would rather have to wear a tuxedo made out of taxidermied squirrels. And raise your left hand if you would rather wear a swimsuit made of live starfish. Okay? Ready? Raise your hands. Go. Okay. Good. All right. Style preference number 2. Raise your right hand if you'd rather wear a cologne or perfume to the scent of a new tennis ball. Or raise your left hand if you would rather wear a cologne or perfume to the scent of wet German Shepherd. Ready? Raise your hands. Go. Okay, here we go. Style preference number 3. Raise your right hand if you'd rather have your bedroom designed like a prison cell. And raise your left hand if you'd rather have an upside down bedroom. Ready? Raise your hands. Go. Okay, 4th style preference. Are you ready? Raise your right hand if you'd rather wear your grandma's wardrobe. And raise your left hand if you'd rather wear a king cobra as a necktie. Ready to raise hands? Go. All right, final style preference. Raise your right hand if you'd rather have to wear 3 layers of sweats to the beach. And raise your left hand if you'd rather have to wear your mom's bathing suit. Ready to raise hands? Go. So in the same way that you each have your unique style preference that defines how others receive you, you also have a unique learning preference that you choose to define the way you receive information. It's important, especially in middle school, to have a good understanding of your own personal learning style preference, as you'll be practicing study skills in preparation for high school. So let's take a look at these 4 learning styles: visual, auditory, tactile kinesthetic, and multi-sensory learner. Check it out.
Welcome to Visual, Auditory, and Kinesthetic Learning Styles and Awesome Animation by Lorena Bull. The VAK Learning Styles uses the 3 main sensory receivers: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, which refers to movement or doing. Although technically part of kinesthetic, T is sometimes added for tactile or touch. Visual learners come in 2 types. One type prefers learning through written language, so they do best with reading and writing tasks. For example, they need to write down directions when they're going somewhere unfamiliar. The other type of visual learners don't do as well with written language, preferring other types of visuals like demonstrations, prefer to learn through movement and touch because they need external stimulation to keep them concentrated. Their note-taking strategies often include doodling, diagrams, and use of highlighter markers. While learners use all three learning styles to receive and learn new information, one or two of these styles is usually dominant. But this could change depending on the task, say preferring a combination of styles for one task and a different style for another. Unlearning styles often force upon us through life like this. From kindergarten through third grade, new information is presented aesthetically. Grades 1 to 8 are visually presented, while grade 9 through college and beyond is primarily auditory through lectures. According to VAK theorists, information should be presented using all three styles to allow all learners the opportunity to become engaged. So how do you learn best? Go to the link below to take the VAK Learning Style Survey.
So now that you have a good understanding of the 4 learning styles, let's apply it. We're going to basically do a would you rather for your personality learning style preference. So we'll be using the learning style inventory through Stetson and Associates. Let's take 4 minutes on our countdown clock to complete that independently right there at your desk. Ready? Go. know your own personal learning style preference, let's go over some tips and tricks for how to best utilize that style for academic success. So those of you, and raise your hands right there at your desk, those of you who scored the highest as a visual learner, raise your hand. All right? Good. Visual learners learn with their eyes. That means that you're going to have a preference in the following, right? You are going to want highlighters and colored pens. You're going to want to be sure that you have doodle paper and colored index cards. This is your visual learner toolkit. So you want to be sure that you have these on hand, as it's going to trigger your brain when you see images, when you see charts and graphs, and when you see colors. We've done auditory, we've done visual. Now, those of you who scored highest in tactile kinesthetic, raise your hands. All right, you are the learners that learn through doing, through action, through using your hands. You will want to do things like go on walks while you study, and having index cards for this is really great. You're going to want to use stress balls or fidget toys to keep your hands busy during lectures. You're going to want to take advantage of flexible seating like wobble chairs, things like that. Keeping active keeps your mind active, so you want to aim for movement. And then finally, our fourth learning style is for those of you who scored 2 or more learning styles in a very similar score. This is called multi-sensory learning, which means that you learn best through several types of learning to gain information. So combining learning preferences will help you learn the most in the shortest time frame. For instance, when I was in middle school, I, like you, was discovering my own learning. I tried a lot of different things like listening to classical music, walking with my flashcards, highlighting, etc. After a lot of trial and error, I was able to figure out that I learn best through the following. I'm a visual learner and I'm an auditory learner. That's how I learn best, even now in adulthood. So now, as you've discovered your own learning style preference and you're going to work on applying it, let's pause for a minute and think about the kind of learner that Jesus might have been. Now, we know that he didn't take papyrus paper learning style questionnaires like you just took, right? So how can we tell what kind of learner Jesus was? What comes to mind is in his early teen years, like you, or his preteen years, his middle school time. Just like yours, we can look in the scriptures and discover what kind of learner he was. So I found 2 places that give us clues. Be on the lookout for these clues. Because we know, here's the first one, because we know that Jesus was a carpenter's son to Joseph, we can assume that he did carpentry as well. And so listen to this text. Isaiah 44:13 describes what carpentry work is. Here it is. The carpenter measures with a line and makes an outline with a marker. He roughs it out with chisels and marks it with compasses. Okay, so what kind of learning style preference does Jesus show here? Is he showing visual, auditory, tactile, kinesthetic, or is he multisensory? I want you to take 10 seconds on our countdown clock to TTAP, to tap, turn to a partner, and share what type of learner you believe middle school Jesus is demonstrating here in his carpentry work. Ready? Go. I agree. I think it's safe to say that Jesus, in his carpentry skill learning, was a tactile kinesthetic learner. So that's one type of learner Scripture shows us to be. The second is a verse that I look to in Luke 2:46, and here's what it says. This is when, and here's the context, when Jesus is age 12, like many of you are age 12, and he gets lost during Passover. So his parents, Joseph and Mary, are looking all over for him for 3 days. Finally, they find him in the temple, and get this, he's surrounded by professor rabbis. These aren't like your middle school teachers. These are like collegiate or doctoral professors, right? And here's what the Bible tells us. After 3 days, they found him in the temple court, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking questions. Listening to them and asking questions. So, with 10 seconds on our countdown clock, I'd like you to tap TTAP, turn to a partner, and share which learning style preference you believe middle school Jesus demonstrates in this verse. Ready? Go. I agree. I think it's safe to say that Jesus was also not just a kinesthetic and tactile learner, but he was an auditory learner as well, which makes him, if you have 2 or more, a multi-sensory learner. So as you work on using your newfound knowledge of your learning style preference, be sure to be asking yourself the learning would I rathers, okay? So here's examples. Would I rather read the assigned reading in the textbook, or would I rather listen to it online? All right, another example. Would I rather do my math on a whiteboard, or would I rather do it in a notebook? Okay, another example. Would I rather practice my vocab words online with Spelling City, or would I rather use colored flashcards? Finding your learning style rathers will be a journey that will make you a better learner and a successful student. That's all for a Miss Mindy Minute today. Until next time, bye-bye.